Hello, my name is Osha, and I want to do a quick history of the Iranian people and the Persians and their relationship with the Abrahamic religions, and including the Hebrew people, the Hebrews. It's going to be quick. It's not detailed, and it's based on some individual study. It's not exhaustive. It's not intended to cast aspersions or be racist in any form. I have an interest in history, being a historian, having degrees in history, and also my narrative is also based on some of my Persian friends, my Iranian friends. I've lived with Iranians. I've lived with an Iranian medical doctor. I've traveled with an Iranian, and so of course I always ask questions. I had classmates in school who were in Iranian, so I always ask questions, and so I get it's from the perspective of Iranians. That's how I'm narrating this brief history, and from just individual studies. It's also very critical because I like to read the Bible, right? I'm a student of the Bible. So interestingly, um, a Persian is the only figure in the Bible that's referred to as a Messiah who is not Hebrew. He's not of Hebrew origin. Messiah or an anointed one, and that's Cyrus the Great, right? So, the book of in the book of Isaiah, the prophecies concerning Cyrus the Great, who's supposed to come and liberate the children of Israel from their Babylonian captivity. You see, these are names that I'm throwing about because these are they're historical figures and nations in the Bible. So that's why that's the reason why I want to put this together. And considering the backdrop of the current U.S. war with U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. So it's interesting. Iran, the word Iran is from Aryan, right? That's the origin of Aryan. So it's interesting that they are also the origin of the Aryan concept, right? From which the Nazis espouse, right? The racist dogma. So that's not that I'm saying that Iranians themselves are racist, but it was just Nazis who wanted to appropriate the, because again, Persians, Iranians, they have a great ancient civilization, right? They're known for high achievement. Apparently, Aryan actually means noble, right? Noble. And so the Nazis wanted to appropriate that word, and the character and the history of Iranians, Persians, to be able to validate, the Nazi claims of the superiority of Germans. They tried to link, Germans to some kind of ancient heritage of civilizations. Maybe in part because Romans had actually referred to Germanic peoples that they'd conquered as barbarians or whatever. But so the Nazis were trying to counter that narrative, right? And so they linked it to Persians, Aryans, Iranian people, right? So, but the Aryans didn't come up with that. That's one. There's another group of people that it's funny that have tended to link part of their caste system to Iranians, and that's the Brahmins of India, right? The highest caste. They're supposed to be descendants of Persians. They're supposed to have come, migrated from Persia to India. So they are supposed to be to occupy the highest caste system uh, in India. Of course, which is racist. These I understand these systems are not adhered to anymore. But um, that's part of the cultural influence of Persians. So you could see different groups wanting to affiliate, wanting to ascribe, attribute their own sort of status, link some kind of their status to Persians. It shows that they have an ancient civilization. So let me get to it. Um, Persians have a very old language. It's Farsi. Farsi goes to about 2,500 years ago. And I referred to Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great was a 6th century king of Persia, and he was the founder of, I don't know if he founded, but he was part of the what was called the Achaemenid Empire, right? And so he is said to have freed the Hebrews, right? The children of Israel, the Hebrews in their Babylonian captivity. And I will describe who the Babylonians were. But let me try and just wrap up Cyrus. So Cyrus, he's mentioned in Ezra, Second Chronicles, Daniel, Isaiah. So in the Bible, God is actually referring to him as an anointed one that God called, knew from his mother's womb, and called him, by name. And so he goes on to liberate the children of Israel and sends them back to their lands, their original homelands, and helps to fund the building of their temples and returns the vessels that the Babylonians had taken, right, during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, right, during the name of Nebuchadnezzar, who was a Chaldean, right. It's interesting that I'm saying Nebuchadnezzar was a Chaldean, of course, a king in Babylon, which is in Mesopotamia. If you want to try and place an area, that's modern day Iraq. Now remember Abraham, right? Abraham is said to have come from Ur of the Chaldeans. So Abraham is supposed to have been a Chaldean, maybe a child. The Chaldeans didn't exist then, but Abraham is supposed to have come from Ur of the Chaldeans. So that's the area of Mesopotamia, Iraq. That's where, and of course Abraham is the ancestor of the Jewish people, the Hebrews, right? So they came from the area of Mesopotamia. Now, one of my Iranian friends, I asked, as a term, I don't know why they refer to Arabs and Jewish people as Semites. So when someone is saying in the English term that somebody is racist, is racist towards Jewish people, you notice they say they're anti-Semitic, right? So that's because they refer to Jewish people and Arabs, people of within the Middle East, many people as Semites, right? Semitic tribes. So I asked my friend, I referred to her as I thought that they were cousins, Iranians, and because I wanted to know more, that Iranians and Jewish people are they close in Iraq, especially since they share borders. They're really close in geography. That are they Semitic people as well? And she explained to me, no, she was actually offended. Again, my friends who are Iranians, they're not racist. They're very loving, charming people, right? They're not racist. Um, well, let me not call it whole people not being racist. I'm sure there are people amongst them that will be racist or whatever, but generally my friends, people I know, I don't want to paint a whole people with a broad brush, right? So, so she explained to me that no, that they're not Semites, they're not considered Semitic people, right? Um, so interestingly, though, um, in terms of religion, right? They practice Islam today, right? And of course, Islam is from a Semitic, a Semitic group of people. The Arabs are supposed to be Semites, like Jewish people, and they conquered Persia and made Persia, Iran. They made it a Muslim, right? So for a long time, most people understand that Persians, Iranians practice a different brand of Islam. They're Shiites, right? Shia Islam, they're Shiites, which is different from what uh, most of the world or what the Arabian Peninsula practices, Sunni Muslim, right? Sunni Islam, they're Sunni Muslims. Well, up until the 16th century, up until the time of the Safavid dynasty in Persia, Iranians also were also mainly Sunni as well. They were Sunni. But the Safavid dynasty empire, they expelled the is the Arabic influence, Arabic rule, and I guess they reinfused the elements of the Persian influence there and created, have their own brand of Islam, and infusing their Persian culture, back into Islam. Interestingly, though, the oldest monotheism in the world is actually Persian. It's from Persia, right? Not so they are said to have actually influenced the Abrahamic religions. When we say Abrahamic religions, those are monotheisms derived from Abraham, right? Abraham who came from Ur of the Chaldeans, right? Ur of the Chaldeans, and then moved to Canaan, and his descendants, Isaac, Jacob, right? And Judaism, uh, Christianity, Islam, they're called Abrahamic religions. Now, their monotheisms, a monotheism, their belief in one God, right? That they believe in just one God, right? There's an older monotheism, what's normally attributed by most historians as having the oldest monotheism, continuous monotheism, is Zoroastrianism, right? From the prophet was Zoroaster. Um, Zoroastrianism, its origin is Persian, right? It's Persian. And they believe in one God. They were the first to believe in one God, and they practiced. They had the ethical conflict between good and evil, which Christianity has. So Zoroastrianism, this Persian religion, it's still practiced today in Iran. It is said to have influenced the Abrahamic religions, right? Because they believe in one God, and they have that conflict between good and evil and angels and things like that. So they say these elements were actually borrowed from a Persian religion, right? Zoroastrianism, which is still practiced today in Iran, in Persia. So the Persians, again, they go back a very long time. From the time of Cyrus, they go back longer before that time. Abraham, in the Bible, historians, they peg the time Abraham lived to about 2100 BC. The Persians already, existed close to that. They go back to the Medes, right? And we see, as I said, Nebuchadnezzar, who comes later on and captures the Israelites, the children of Israel, and takes them into captivity, into bondage in Babylon. Um, then later, Cyrus comes. Cyrus conquers Babylon, and then he frees the children of Israel. He sends them back, right? He lets them go back to their land, to Canaan, the area of the that's known as modern day Palestine, to back to their land in Israel and Judah, lets them go back and build their temples, and sends them back with their vessels that had been captured. So, interestingly, when I did international human rights law at Oxford, I came across uh, information, literature that said the oldest known Bill of Human Rights, right? Human Rights Charter is said to be Persian. It came from Cyrus the Great. It's called the Cyrus Cylinder, right? And you can find it in the British Museum. There's an artifact, a sample in one of the in American museums. But so the Cyrus Cylinder, because it had like an edict, it had writing, um, and it was it gave certain rights. It recognized religious tolerance. It had, advocated religious tolerance. Uh, you know, and just the way, and multiculturalism, right? Multiculturalism. So you will see. Uh, so anyway, the Cyrus cylinder is supposed to be. It's considered the earliest form of Bill of Rights, right? And you have some, so that's like a Bill of Rights. It's like writing in scripture, inscription or law that recognizes universal rights of man, and the Cyrus cylinder, it emphasizes religious freedom, religious tolerance, multiculturalism. So yeah, so there's a lot to say about the Persians, and the Persians again. That's just a synonymous nomenclature for Iran, right? Persians, Iranians, they're the same. They have one of the oldest continuous languages. Goes 2,500 years. That's a Farsi language, right? Farsi language, or modern Persian. Its modern form, I think, started in the 9th century BC, but its origins are 2,500 years ago. So it goes 2,500 years old, right? And interestingly, um, Alexander the Great did conquer the Achaemenid Empire in the fourth century, but the Parthian Empire, which is from that same region again, right, overthrew the uh, the rule of the Greeks, and they established the Parthian Empire. Now they were often if you study the history of Rome, you find that the Romans were often in conquest with they were often in conflict with the Parthians, right? The Parthian Empire. So that's another empire within amongst the Persians. So they fought with Julius Caesar. That was when Julius Caesar said, "Veni, vidi, vici." I came, I saw, I conquered. So several times, maybe the Romans they sacked their capital. The name of their capital was Ctesiphon, and it sacked their capital, conquer them, maybe as many as 5 times, but they would always shake them off. So they were never able to permanently or fully conquer the Parthians. That's the Persians. So eventually, even Augustus gave it up. Right, Augustus gave it up. At one time, Mark Antony was also engaged in a war with them, the Parthian Empire. So eventually, Augustus said they should set the boundary uh, at their empire, right? So they were sort of roughly divided between the Euphrates River, right? It's funny, the Euphrates is actually in the Bible as well. You remember Euphrates, Tigris, right? So Euphrates became the boundary of the Roman Empire. So the Romans were never able to fully conquer them. Different emperors would try, like Trajan did try, Septimius Severus, who was the African, who became an emperor of Rome. Um, it would try, but again, the Parthians and Persians would always repel. They'd always repel them. They'd always come conquer back, right? So they'd always shake off the shackles, and they'd remerge again. So Persians, Iranians are used to not being conquered. You're always overcoming, right? They're used to long wars, and always ending up getting their own victory. Being victorious. So very long history of warfares, right? Yeah, just like they had with the Romans and the Greeks, and yeah, and the Muslims, the Arabs, right? They shook off the yoke of the Arabs, and eventually established themselves and established their own form of Islam during the Safavid Empire. And so I'm not going to go into the modern history. Interestingly, I wanted to say that they are in terms of oil, they are amongst the top four, top five largest. They have amongst the top four largest oil reserves in the world, right? So um, that's something else. And their literature, right? They're known for their literature. Uh, the normally uh, associated with the was it 12th or 13th century poet Rumi. Rumi is very famous, so they have a very rich culture, and so that's my quick rundown of the Persians. Uh, and if I have anything more to say, I will do a later video. My name is Julius Caesar, and I will keep you posted. Thank you.